What's going on, everybody? Bob Street Toad Warriors. We're going to talk about some tips that are going to help you win your league, and that show is going to start right now. All right, Bob Street Toad Warriors live from Studio 1329. And I even have my first in-studio guest with me at Studio 1329. That's Mr. John McGlynn. How you doing, sir?
Fantastic. This is a lovely garage. I love going to people's houses and their garages are all set up with all sports memorabilia, different kind of alcohols. It's like heaven in here, man. This is great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem. Just, sports memorabilia, alcohol, and some hot tips. Make sure I say that right. So it's not just us, though. We got David. David, why don't you introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me on, Bob. It's nice, actually, before I get into it, I host multiple shows a week, so it's really nice to actually not host and be able to just, lay back and kick my feet up a little bit.
Sure.
And you can find me at DMendy02 on Twitter. I'm the host of the Triple Play Fantasy Podcast. We do a football and baseball show, interview athletes and personalities, all that. I write DFS, like my guy Beastie, for an up-and-coming site called Fantrax. And I write fantasy football and baseball articles for Fantasy Sports Degens. And you can see me talk about my guy, the Fresh Prince of Hilaire, winning your league this year there. So looking forward to shooting the S with you guys and talking some fantasy football.
Love it. Seth, when we flip down to you at the bottom here, you can tell them where your Twitter handle is so that everybody can get interactive with you on Twitter.
Oh, absolutely. At Seth FFL is my Twitter handle that I never use. So
say that one more time. That you what? Always use?
No, never actually. But no, thanks for having me on. It's been fun listening to you get your own show going and all your excellent guests. I know Beastie's been on a few times, and we talked with John before. So happy to be on and talk some fantasy tips.
Yep, and Beastie's over there counting right now, and I think his number was accurate. He's counting his lead over Du Bois, Kevin Du Bois, and he had a chance to stay even with him today, but still ahead, but even. But Kevin had some life duties, which is reasonable. Yes. And Detroit BC takes a little bit further of a lead again. So how's it going over there, buddy?
It's great. Thanks for having me again. And Kevin and I have been going back and forth. He's a great guy. I love him. There's no ill will. It's just, fun when there's a lot of fantasy content, a lot of podcasts, a lot of articles and things of that nature. So it's fun to, let your, have fun with other people, let your true side show, I guess, in a way, instead of being a prick all the time, I guess, on Twitter. Cause I've said it, if I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Social media is toxic, boys.
Yeah. I saw one earlier where someone went from hello to cussing you out with one comment and nothing in between. So it was pretty awesome. I don't know what you did to piss him off, but hey, life's a blast, right? So, all right. So let's get going on this show. Let's I can be found at Bob Street Toad on Twitter, Bob Street Toad Warriors on YouTube, and the Word on the Streets fantasy football group page for Facebook. So that's where I can be found. Live streams are on Tuesdays, and the shows currently are dropping Mondays and Thursdays, soon to be Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays because the season's coming. How many days away are we, boys? We are the 10th. Today is the 1st. That's 9 days. I don't have enough toes to count that, but it's getting close. So, all right. Today's show, as I mentioned earlier, put your damn fingers down, Beastie. Today's show, as we talked about, is hot tips to dominate your league and hopefully help you out here. So it's going to be a mix of things that are pre-draft, during the draft, post-draft, in season. It could be any range of them because they're all important tips to know. And we're also taking your questions. If you have questions and comments, we're going to be talking about them on the show. And if you are watching on YouTube, and even if you're not, go and like, subscribe, follow all those wonderful things. Let's get this show going and let's stop wasting some time. So why don't we head over to you, Detroit Beastie, for one of the first ones.
Sure. So when it comes to draft, it's not really a trick. It's a tip that I use personally. if anybody's ever interacted with me, or if we've chatted or watched a broadcast, I write everything down. I don't care what it is. I don't care where it is, how it's written, if it's in crayon, if it's in pen, on a sticky note, on a gum wrapper. I don't care. I write everything down, so I have it with me at the time of like the draft, let's say, or a mock draft. I'm not going to steal what other people are going to say. Write everything down, get all my crazy thoughts and my ideas out on paper where I can see it. And I know a lot of us, actually probably 100% of us, have smartphones now, right? And I have an iPhone, so I'm able to just ask Siri questions, and I leave it plugged in next to my bed. And I can't tell you how many times I wake up in the middle of the night and I have a thought, and I don't trust myself to wake up in the morning and remember it. So,
Right.
Hey Siri, can you say, name my team Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in the morning? Things of that nature. But any tips and tricks and numbers or anything I can think of, write everything down. If it's not useful, you toss it, because you never know when you're going to come upon a target share on a guy that you're looking to draft in the 10th round, let's say. So my first tip or trick, write everything down, document everything.
Document, like, do you have proof to show that you actually document stuff? I mean, I don't really believe that you document a damn thing. Oh, wait, there's this little
These are
post-it
just my
notes or note cards. Yeah.
And that's just for
My
this
note
show.
cards yeah, it really is. And these are for I'm working on a backup, like a handcuff article, Battle of the Backups. I did some polls, I think about a week or 10 days ago, and I'm going to turn it into an article. And there's about 20 different handcuffs here that I would like to draft. And I have everything from what they did last year to what they're going to do this year, their target shares, their catch rate, their vertical jump. It's crazy, but I love doing it. And if I look like a serial killer because of it, then so be it. As long as my rankings and my projections are very accurate come end of the season, right?
All right. So since David, he's already trying to steal your team name, why don't we jump over to you for a pick here, so that he doesn't steal one of your ideas?
Yeah, I mean, he insults me before the show. Now he's taking my ideas. Like, I don't know what I did to you, man.
This just in, I want nothing to do with Hilaire this season, so you're safe.
Oh, damn.
So one of the things I like to look at is I look at the offensive plays from the previous season. You can see if the team keeps mostly the same pieces intact, their coaching staff, the quarterback, the system, etc. I'll look at their offensive plays and kind of average it out for the last few seasons. For example, the Atlanta Falcons, they've been in the top 10 in plays run each of the last 3 seasons, and they've been in the top 5 in terms of passing attempts, including they were first last year. So that kind of plays into someone like Hayden Hurst, who I'm really high on this year. They let Austin Hooper walk for pretty much nothing, and I think they think that system is actually really good for tight ends, and they think anybody can just plug in. So I look at kind of the plays run, and I'll look at kind of how each position does in that kind of offense with the coaches and all that. And another example, the Cowboys, they were 21st in passing plays last year and 7th overall in plays per game. I would expect in a contract year for Dak Prescott, pretty much he's going to have to get a long-term deal, or they're going to have to trade him and let him go. So I would expect to go up from 21st in pass plays when you pick CeeDee Lamb in the first round. And if you look at their receivers last year, Amari Cooper had 119 targets and Michael Gallup had 113 targets. So their other 2 leading target getters were actually 83 each for Randall Cobb and for Blake Jarwin. So you take those two off as 166 targets available. I expect Blake Jarwin to take a big jump. I expect CeeDee Lamb to make a big splash. I actually have CeeDee Lamb as a borderline wide receiver 1. I think he's going to be the alpha in that offense. And I am all over him. I'm making sure I can get him wherever I go. I like to look at the trends that the team has. And again, Dallas 21st passing the ball last season, still produced 119 and 113 targets for 2 receivers. I like their passing offense to go up this year. And that, again, means that I think the receivers are going to have really good years.
All right. The Fresh Prince of Hilaire is a little seedy. Real quick, B. Hartley 4144 out there on Twitter says, stole those. I think he's talking about your note cards there. Stole those from the kids' virtual learning folder. Fooled you. Doesn't have kids that he knows about. He said, just kidding, B.
Very true. I couldn't have said it better.
BK2 Cole out there on Twitter says, "I like it. Go Cowboys." He's a big
Smart
diehard
man.
Cowboy fans, friend of the show, friend of mine in the league. So, good guy there. All right, let's keep the show rolling, and let's go over to you, John.
All right, this is kind of simple. It's not very hard to do, but look at your favorite rankers. Everybody's got their favorite guys, their go-to guys, fantasy pros or 4for4, Bob's 3-toed sloths. All the important.
Damn, that never dies.
All the important guys, But look at your favorite rankers and go through their rankings. See who they have that they're high or low on. Who's different high, who's different low. Look into those players. Do some research, and make your own rankings for draft prep. Don't be afraid to move your guys up or down a round or two, depending on your gut instinct. Don't ever be afraid to trust yourself and go after target the players that you really want on your team. It's not that hard to make your own rankings. It's just the more you do it, the better you'll get at it, and you'll see the more leagues you're in, the more drafts you do, the more everything. It just gets easier and easier, and once you start, it's hard to stop. So that's my bit of advice: is start doing your own rankings and look at other people's rankings and see why somebody's so much higher than another player, or why this player is so low on Fantasy Pros and that it's so high on Yahoo, vice versa. The more you look in, the more you learn. That's the way to do it.
Okay, I dig it. It's very true. Did my first rankings for the league this year, or for the pod this year, and it was a little detailed. I probably went a little further than I had to, but it felt good that when I was, Twitter debating or even doing my own drafting, that the numbers I was looking at were numbers I was happy with, not just, that other experts, league experts, consensus, experts, life. I thought I was in one of those loops. B. Hartley said, "I love this point, John. Can you get different opinions on guys and combine it with your own research?" Absolutely. It's also sometimes good to hear more than one opinion, even if you don't want to. Oh, I'm going to go next with a little impromptu one, which maybe it's on someone else's. I won't go next.
Can I actually add one thing on that? I'm glad that John said that, because I think if you just want cookie cutter rankings, you should just look at Matthew Berry or, one of those guys. I think I've heard BC say this before. No one should insult anybody for anybody's rankings, because no one can predict the future. And if you take Matthew Berry's rankings and then you look at them at the end of the year, they may be way off. I think everybody wants to just go with what the experts say, but if you don't kind of look into it and make your own predictions, then you're not really being yourself. You want to be your own person, and that's why I'm not afraid to make bold calls. One of my co-hosts on the show, he's known for his bold calls. He has Austin Eckler as the number 2 running back this year. He has Kyler Murray as the number 1 quarterback. He has Amari Cooper as the number 3 wide receiver. That's the type of things that's hey, be yourself, do you, I don't like when I see people trash other people's rankings, because who are you to trash someone else,
Yeah, I just got lambasted this afternoon because I traded Noah Fan away to get Antonio Gibson on a team that has very, very short amount of running backs. And it's a dynasty team, and the whole league's like, "That's crap. Why would you do that? It's stupid. Worst mistake in the world. Who would make that kind of trade?" I would, because I like that. I like Antonio Gibson's future, and I have a couple other young tight ends, and I like it.
There you go. You got to go with the gut, which is mine's growing. So, all right, Seth, did I kick it over to you yet?
Not yet.
All right, let's go for it, bud.
All right. For me, I'm saying for this season in particular, know your depth charts for your players, because this is a season where it hasn't happened yet, but if we get hit with COVID for multiple teams, the waiver wire is going to be more important than ever this year, basically. So knowing your players and knowing your players next in line, so handcuffing essentially, is going to be important. I'm not saying draft those handcuffs right now. Maybe draft handcuffs for other players that you don't have, just to get the most amount of upside. But I think that knowing your depth chart for your players is going to be very important for if and when things go bad this season.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw one in here from myself. And that is going to be, let me just double check. Yep. It's one of those things that when I was trying to type these in here, I couldn't think of a damn one. And then as you guys are talking, I'm like, oh, got one. How about let's say know your league settings. We went to a draft where it's a pretty loose league, but on Friday, they did a quick vote. I don't even know if it was really an official vote that really happened, but it turned into a super flex league. It's just a one and done type redraft. And I'm pretty sure that at least one or two guys drafting did not realize it was a super flex league until about the 5th round. They're like, why are so many quarterbacks gone? So know your league settings, know if it's PPR half point standard, know if you need to start 2 kickers, two kickers, 2 tight ends, 2 quarterbacks. Know if you have to start 2 kickers. You never know. B. Hartley's all up in the words. He said another good call by Seth, followed by number one thing, know your league settings and your scoring. Absolutely.
Rule number 1.
No, rule number 1. All right. Love you guys commenting in. Makes it fun, makes it interesting. Thank you very much. Let's swing it back around to BT for one.
So I didn't want to jump in and be a jerk, but when Mendy was talking about, people trashing other people's rankings, my go-to, like I'm in LA.
I think BC's breaking up there, but I can guarantee BC's saying that when people are trashing your rankings, you just ask them this question. No problem. Where do you have them ranked at? What do you have them ranked at for or statted out for points and stuff? Is that where you're going there, Detroit?
Yeah,
you broke up.
Sorry, I cut out for a minute. I always ask them, well, if my rankings are so bad, let me see yours. Oh,
Yes.
I don't. And it's like, and it completely vanquishes anything they say. Yeah. And last night, I comment about, I said, yeah, Kenny G's a top 10. Kenny Galladay here in Detroit. He's a top 10 receiver. And FUB, go waste another guy's talent here in Detroit. Like I have any say so who comes to Detroit and whose talent is wasted. So some guy that wasn't all put together there. So real quick, another tip that I have is your queue, like in the middle of the draft. And that goes along the lines of what I told you guys in the chat prior to us going live. Know your draft, know your rules, and remember, see if you can get if the draft is already predetermined where you're drafting. If you're number 5, you're coming back around at, let's say, what would that be? Pick 25, pick 20 or something like that. So create a block of where your picks are specifically and just put 4 or 5 guys in each, tier, not a tier of rankings per se, but a tier of how the draft is going to play out in terms of where your actual selection is. Because I don't know about you guys, I've been in thousands of drafts and not one of them has ever played out how I thought it was going to. So if someone says, well, at pick 10, I'm going to draft Joe Mixon, and at pick 20, I'm going to draft, those guys aren't going to be available. You have to plan ahead. You have to do your homework. So create a block of guys, highlight them in different colors, whatever you want to do to make it more fun, and use the queue to your advantage.
Absolutely. David, over to you, bud.
Yeah, I'll just tie one of my next one with kind of what BC's saying, and draft to get your guy. I get so tired of hearing people saying, wait, tired of it. I don't want everyone and their mom, wait to get a wide receiver, wait to get a quarterback. Don't draft Dobbins too early. Enough of this blasphemy, okay? I'm big on Kyler Murray this year. I think he's going to be really good. wasn't going to overpay to get Mahomes or for Jackson, but I really wanted Kyler in at least a few of my leagues. And one of the drafts I was in, I knew Kyler Murray was on the way back. I had the 5th pick, and it was on the way back in round 4. And I said, the number 1 pick, that's the guy in my league, Brad, or the guy on our show, Brad, is Kyler's number 1 QB. I was like, I know for a fact he's getting taken there. And I said, I know 4th round, everybody's saying, oh, you just wait till later to get a quarterback. I was like, no, I do think Kyler has that potential to make that Lamar Jackson, that Mahomes leap to potentially be the number 1 quarterback this year. So I was like, I'm making sure I take him in the 4th round and get him. Same with J.K. Dobbins. If he's a 10th round value and you really think he's going to be that lottery ticket to win you a league, I'm going to take him in the 8th round and make sure I get him. And I don't like people that just say, look at the ADPs. You're taking him 2 rounds early. If you really think this guy is going to be the guy, go get him. Don't listen to what everybody else says and to say, wait to what their ADP is, So I think if you really believe in someone, you got to go get them.
Sure. I can buy that. John? Your mic.
I was on mute, guys. Sorry about that. Do mock drafts. That's my. No, I do mock drafts all year long. As soon as mock drafts are available on any site, Sleeper, ESPN, any site that has mock drafts, I love them, and I have time to do them. If you do quick ones that are set for 2 minutes, you got, again, if there guys are in your queue, you know who you like. The more drafts you do, you don't even have to use your queue. You'll just know, like, all right, and knowing where people are going in all these drafts is key to drafting when it's actually draft time. You'll know like where to take guys, where you want your guys, where they usually go. If you do 100 drafts in the off season, who cares? If you're bored at sitting in your kids' sports, or you're bored at
sounds terrible. It's true. It's true. Well.
Yeah, I got 4 kids, and you have no idea how much I sit in girls lacrosse practice and girls basketball practice. I have nothing but time to sit in the stands and watch practice all day long.
We understand you drove 40 minutes to the studio. I get it.
So the more mock drafts you do, the better drafter you're going to be. And the more, everybody says, oh, I'm going to go kill this draft. And then the draft comes there and you're like, oh no, and people get fluttered. Everybody floods in your head. You got 1,000 names going through your head at the same time. When you're drafting all the time and you're used to it, it's like anything else. Practice makes perfect. You just do it. You'll be perfect. You'll be better at it when draft time comes along.
Yeah, you get in that zone and time slows down. Even though that timer's just ticking away, you're comfortable. You're not freaking out. You're not going on tilt all of a sudden.
Right.
Until your guy gets snatched right before you.
Right.
That's a real thing. No, I did some mocks. I just did a 10 team last night, and it was pretty close, surprisingly close to the way it rounded out. I think it would have been a little closer if a couple guys, because I was last, I was 10th in a 10th rounder or 10 teamer. If a couple other guys would have realized it was super flex, I think more than just Mahomes and Jackson would have went in the first round. But yeah, it's interesting. You definitely need to mock draft and get a little feel for it. So, anybody ever try mock drafting when you have keeper leagues?
Yeah, it's a pain to put everything in there.
It's so not relevant to that kind of league almost.
Well, I know on Fantasy Pros you can actually put in the actual keepers,
player by
player, and I think you can do that with Sleeper too, if I'm not mistaken. It takes a little longer to set up, but that can be a big deal because you have my college buddies and I have a keeper league that we do every year, and almost all of the good running backs are gone, pretty much because everybody's being kept. Yeah. So a player that you are looking at the end of the first round is not somebody that you would normally be looking at.
I find it, sorry to cut you off, I find it so important what John said up top about, doing your homework and, making a list of tiers and things of that nature, because depending on what platform you use, we know there's a million of them. ESPN, Yahoo, CBS, NFL.com. There's so many. Sleeper, but everybody has different projections. So if you're strictly only been playing on Sleeper and doing mock drafts on Sleeper, then when draft day is upon you and you're on ESPN, you're like, well, I'm not seeing, player A. I'm not seeing Kenny Galladay in top 10 wide receivers, and so as John said up top, you get flustered and you make a panic pick because every platform has different projections and their draft rooms are going to look a tad bit different than if you're only, using the same one. So if you're going to mock draft constantly, like I do as well, I go in rotation. Tonight is ESPN, tomorrow's Sleeper, Thursday, just any and all. So there's never a surprise in the draft room as far as projections and ADP is concerned. That's why making your own notes and your own projections are so important. No matter where you draft, what city, what country, what website, your stats are yours. Your projections are yours. So they're kind of foolproof, I guess, in a way for the platform base.
All right. Well, let's bring in one more guest. We can't have enough guests in here. Let's kick the show screen out of here for a second. Let's bring one more guest in here. Let's bring in Mr. Jordan Rains, Mr. at 50 Shades of Drunk. My first or second favorite Twitter handle. Two Titties Are Fun is might be my favorite one, but it's definitely a close second if it's not the first.
Top 2, I'll take it. How you guys doing?
There you go. How you doing, buddy? Welcome to the show.
Good. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm not in my usual spot, but hopefully this works out pretty good.
Yeah, you sound good. Looks good. So why don't you let the listeners and the viewers know where you can be found and what you got going on right quick.
Yeah, I'm Jordan Rains at 50 Shades of Drunk, like they said. I write at Dynasty Nerds. I'm a senior writer there. I have a podcast, IDP 411, which is hosted by expandtheboxscore.com. And then I also do my own podcast, which I just launched. It's called Defense Matters, mostly IDP, all fantasy football. And that's just going to be going over IDP rankings, weekly rankings. I'm going to go over try to do my top 24, maybe my top 36. We'll just see how it works out. And yeah, that's pretty much where I can be found. And on Twitter, shit posting. Occasionally I'll put out some good content for people. And yeah, having a good time with guys like you.
All right, that's awesome. Yeah, we ran into each other on Twitter last season, and I think you were in the Vampire League with me. And
Yeah, I
it was a good
lost.
time.
I was like last place in the Vampire League. It was a nightmare.
It was a little rough. It happens. What are you gonna do, right? So we are talking about some great tips. Before we get into the great tips, something pretty cool came up with a little IDP for you recently. Little announcement.
Yeah. So
why don't you spell that on here for those who aren't as familiar? Your mic just cut out. There you go.
I accidentally just hit my mute my mic. No,
yeah, so excited. He shut on his own mic.
IDP 123 scoring is kind of like my baby. It's something I've been working on for a while. It's just basically an IDP fantasy football scoring system or format to let people kind of introductory into IDP, helping people kind of get into a league that's one, formatted well, and two, scored like well. So you're not like having to really worry about, is this player really worth this or that? Like you kind of know going in, this league has been set up to have a scoring format that's equal or close to equal on offensive defense. And it's basically 1, 2, 3 is pertains to like 1 and 2 and 3-point plays. So 1-point plays are quarterback hits and assisted tackles. 2-point plays are tackles for a loss and solo tackles. 3-point plays are forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, pass defended safeties, block kicks, and then 6-point plays, which you have to kind of have, your touchdown of the defense. That's sacks, interceptions, and IDP touchdowns. So, and Dynasty Nerds has decided to graciously, make it kind of their default scoring system for all of our rankings and all of our kind of analysis going forward over there. So that was kind of a big endorsement and a big, shout out. And hopefully it brings more people into IDP. At the end of the day, that's all we want to do is just get more minds, more eyes on this, more people looking at it through the same lens so we can all be having the same conversation and hopefully pushing IDP in the same direction. So that was awesome for them to do. And hopefully, this season will be kind of the first season where I know a lot of people are in or IDP 1, 2, 3 leagues. I'm in a bunch myself. I was only in one last year because I did like a test league, but I'm in several this year. I see people talking about, having created leagues under that scoring format. Yeah. I'm in Dan, Seahawks Dan. I don't know if you guys know him. He's doing an eliminator for Autism Speaks, and it's in that format and it's best ball. So that's going to be interesting. That's kind of the big news that's been going on with me the past couple of days, or that kind of like they really solidified and decided we're going to move forward with that. So
there you go. So I'm going to move right to one of my tips, which is playing a league that uses IDP 1, 2, 3.
There you go.
I stole that on the fly. I told you I couldn't think of these while I was typing them, but boom. No, I played IDP last year in 2 different leagues, and I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was fun looking at a different side of the ball. It was really cool. But what I found it hard to do is, unlike I want to look at PPR rankings. I want to look at half PPR rankings. I want to look at standard rankings. 4 point per touchdown for quarterback, 6-point. There's so many pretty well standard things, and IDP is all over the board. So I've been I know busting you up on the Twitter, here and there, like, hey, that's pretty cool. What can we find? So I think it's pretty neat, and hopefully it takes on, and then more people do get into it and enjoy it. So why don't you give us one of your hot tips for winning your league, whether that's IDP, non-IDP, it does not matter to us. I think you shot me a few here. Why don't you give one of your hot tips, and then we'll swing back around.
Yeah, I think I heard Beastie here saying it just a bit ago. Tier-based rankings are really the best way to go into a draft. You kind of know, especially if you do a lot of mocks, who you can get in your tiers, in round 7 versus like, I can get this same guy in this same tier in round 12. So that kind of gives you, a framework in which you can be like, I'm going to go to this other tier where I'm only 2 guys are left in that pool. So tier-based ranking for IDP especially is so important. I break my main draftable guys into basically 4 big tiers. My elite guys that I think are going to be 1s, the guys that are like high-end 2s but have 1 upside. Then I've got my 2s and like my flexes, and I got pretty much guys that are going to be sitting on my bench. And that kind of chunks it off for you. And like he said, when you do your projections, it kind of gives you a variation of being, okay, well, I know if I have this guy in this tier, I'm expecting him to score around, a 2. So I should draft him as a 2, That's kind of one of my big tips, is just always be tier-based drafting.
That sounds good. I like it. Yeah, that's a big one. Definitely a big one. It was actually one I was surprised wasn't on the list here. So that's a good one. I like it. I think we're at Seth.
Yeah, I can go. So I like to when I'm trading and I'm looking for a trade partner, I want to trade from a place of strength. And what I mean by that is trade with a team that needs what you have extra of.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of if you're trying to go for one specific player and it's on a team that has no need of whatever it is your strengths are right now, it's going to be a lot harder to get that trade done. But if you're looking to trade for better players or to make your team better, you can easily find a team in your league that complements yours. If you have a strength at running back and the other team has strength at wide receiver, you can obviously help each other that way. So when you're looking for trade partners, look for those types of teams that complement your strengths.
Sure, absolutely. Nothing like going to the guy with 20 wide receivers and trying to sell him another wide receiver to take his lack of running backs, right? He's going to be all over wanting to do that. Doubt it. So very valid point. Very valid point. That's going to swing it around to me because that other one was just a bonus one that I threw in there a minute ago. Where's my cursor here? So for me, I'm going to go with one that is more in season here. I'm going a little seasonal here. No tinkering with your lineup right before game time. So my wife did this in a league, and when she did that in the league, she sat Golden Tate, and then he went off for 3 touchdowns. You did your research, you said it. Unless someone got hurt, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Don't tinker. Anybody else have a nightmare tinker? That sounded really bad. Experience.
I know I've done it before. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but
that's okay.
There's been a couple of times I've lost weeks.
I missed the playoffs 2 years ago in one of my home leagues by 0.2 points because I played Marlon Mack instead of Kenny Galladay, and I'd had Kenny Galladay in my lineup all week. This was like 2 years ago before people really bought into Kenny Galladay. I was like an early adopter, but I was like doubting myself. And I was like, fuck, I gotta play Marlon Mack, and then 0.2 points. Kenny Galladay went off for like 20. I think Mac pulled off like 11. And I was like, just get me a couple more yards. He couldn't do it. Nightmare.
I have to add to that because
go for it, please.
Kenny Galladay did the same thing to me too. Actually, this was a few years ago as well when he was first bursting on the scene, and I played Kenneth Dixon over him in the semifinals. And Kenneth Dixon, the old Ravens running back Kenneth Dixon. It was became the starter a few weeks prior because of injury, and I was like the Lions number 2 to 3 receiver versus the starting Ravens running back. I had Galladay in all week, and then the very last minute they said Kenneth Dixon's expected to see 15 plus touches. I was like, all right, put it in Kenneth Dixon, and he got like 6 points, and Kenny Galladay got like 20 plus. I lost the semifinals by like 10. So yeah, it burned me too.
I feel you, dude. I feel you.
There's nothing worse than watching the fantasy shows before, right, from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, and everybody's got all these different ideas, and they put all this new stuff in your head, and like, what am I thinking about this guy? They try to change your mind, or you're weighing 50-50 on who you should play, and you already made up your mind, but Matthew Berry or somebody else comes on TV, and it's like, oh, this is why so-and-so, or the guys at Yahoo will say, no, this is you gotta play Adrian Peterson this week because he's gonna do something. You're like, I'm not playing Adrian Peterson, but then it gets in your head, even though you wouldn't do that. Like it gets in your head.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you don't tinker.
That's a great tip.
All right, Detroit Beastie, back over to you, buddy.
Yeah,
don't tinker.
There's one thing that I see year in and year out, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. People get weirded out about drafting a guy. Drafting guys with the same bye weeks. I pay no mind when I draft and what bye week each guy has. Most of the time it's so far down the road. I not to be rude right now, but I don't care about bye weeks. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. That's why you have a waiver wire. That's why you can, trade and make moves. I mean, obviously you don't want to draft your whole team and they all have week 10 buys, but I've never let a bye week, get it in my head when I'm drafting.
That's fair. I was in a league last year that there was 0 trades. So if you want to fill bye weeks, it wasn't 0 trades by default. It's a young league and they're just not big on trading. And so if you want to fill bye week, you were grabbing people off the waiver wire, which is fine. But that league, I pay a little more attention to it just in case I can't swing a deal to fill in a gap and not have to give up a good guy. Look at the benches. I don't know. I think you got to pay attention to the bench a little, and that one myself. But.
Well, the only reason I mentioned that is because I literally saw a comment with a few days ago in the first round. He didn't want to draft Julio because of the bye week and the other keepers that he had on the team. Julio and one of his stud running backs are going to have the same bye week this year. So he passed up on Julio Jones just because bye weeks. And that is I find that absolutely insane. Julio is a dynasty, stud type wide receiver. And, worst case scenario, you take a 0 at that position that week. There's 15 or 16 other games in the season. So I'm sorry, bye weeks pay no, I pay no mind to bye weeks in terms of my drafting.
It's fair. All right. D Mendio 2.
Yeah, so maybe it's the DFS guy in me, but I like looking into analytics and I like looking at statistics of things, and so I can. So I like to dive in a little bit, so if I can see a trend on a player before the rest of my league mates catch up to him, whether it's someone buried on the depth chart making their way up, or someone that if they get that opportunity, I've seen their limited work, and hey, someone's out last minute with a hamstring injury. This receiver is going to be stepping up from the 3 to the 2 role. One of the statistics everybody knows is target share, which is definitely something you should look at. But one that I don't think people talk about is called ADOT, and it's the average depth of yards per target. So I like the stat over YPR, which is yards per reception, because you can actually calculate the targets and not look at the pretty much they have to actually catch the ball in the yards per reception. This is just if the ball is thrown to them, they don't have to catch it or not, but you can see the depth of the route that they're running. So if you see guys like Kenny Galladay, he had the highest ADOT last year at over 15 yards a catch. Someone like Kenny Galladay, who's seeing 21% of the team's targets, hey, it's like all of a sudden I'm going to start throwing him a couple more wide receiver screens. Then his ADOT's going to go down. But at that usage, if you have someone with a high ADOT, I'm thinking again, Kenny Galladay, AJ Brown, both of them can get more catches. It's possible because they're an all-around receiver. They're just best deep, but they're number one guys that are going to come in and can actually get the ball. Kenny Galladay, Devontae Parker, Amari Cooper, Julio Jones, DJ Moore, Chris Godwin. Those were the 6 top guys in ADOT last year. And then you look at their production and it shows. So that's something I like to look at. And then if you're in a PPR league, any type of thing like that, conversely, you can look at guys with smaller ADOTs. You'll see guys like I'm thinking like the Julian Edelmans who will have a 7 ADOT. That means they're going to be running 7-yard routes, a lot more quick slants and that type of thing. You can see which guys he gets more catches. So again, I just think it's an important statistic to use. And again, if you see someone has a higher ADOT, like the Deshaun Jacksons of the world are going to be in that class too, you can kind of pick who fits right with your team and you can see who might break out before the rest of your league mates might.
Okay. So for the average person, where do they find this crazy information?
So you can go, there's a bunch of places you can find it. RotoWire has it. You have to unlock the full thing. You have to pay for it, but they do have samples of it. AirYards.com has everybody's from last year. They have, Air ADOT, they have yards after catch, air yards, all that type of stuff. You can also go to, I believe it's teamrankings.com has it as well. You have to kind of research a little bit. Some sites you have to pay to see it, but other sites have it. So, but I would recommend if you're looking to take that step up from kind of just casual and you really enjoy and want to just dominate leagues, to really get into the analytics and statistics of it, because it shows. And that's how people, who play DFS win big money, because they're able to see these types of trends and data. And so I think it's valuable for any fantasy player to learn.
All right. Very nice. It's always nice to look in and see what you got there on your team. So let's go over to Mr. Jordan Rains for another one.
What's up? All right. Well, I guess I'm just going to stick to my vibe and talk some IDP stuff. But one
Yeah.
of the main things you really need to pay attention to in IDP is the player's designation on the platform.
Yeah.
So Sleeper, for instance, is really good about double tagging a lot of guys like Chandler Jones, Josh Allen, Zadarius Smith, Jason Pierre-Paul, Robert Quinn, Jabril Peppers. All of these players will have multiple tags, so they won't just be like a defensive back. Like Peppers is a defensive back and he can be played as a linebacker. Chandler Jones can be played as a linebacker and as a defensive lineman, DL, just because of the way that their schemes are run. Sometimes they're 3-4, sometimes they're 4-3. They're not uniform across the board with this, though. There's a couple of guys on Sleeper like Shaq Barrett, TJ Watt, Harold Landry that are not double tagged that play the same position that Zadarius Smith, Chandler Jones, Jason Pierre-Paul play. And they are double tagged. So you have to watch that. On ESPN, they have a new thing. It's called DE, but it means defensive edge, not defensive end, apparently. And Flea Flicker did this as well, I think, where they've combined all of the outside linebackers and defensive ends into that defensive edge position. So they're kind of the best at it as far as accepting everybody under that format. But you just really have to watch and know. MFL they're real sticklers about linebacker and DE. They almost never double tag anybody on there. I don't think ESPN double tags almost anybody either, but I like that Sleeper double tags people because it gives you more depth at both the positions both the positions that they're doing, and two, it gives you versatility on how you want to set your lineup in a given week. So if I don't want to play a linebacker if I want to play a floor linebacker like Matt Milano, who I just want 8 tackles this week. Like, give me 8 tackles, give me 12 to 16 points, and that's what I want. And that's kind of what I think that he's going to get versus a guy like Zadarius Smith or TJ Watt, where like they're also a linebacker, but they're a different kind of linebacker. So he could have 2 or 3 sacks plus 6 tackles plus a forced fumble. His ceiling is astronomically higher because of the position he plays. He's in more high leverage, high impact situations on the defense, causing turnovers, getting behind the line of scrimmage, that kind of stuff. Whereas a middle linebacker is sitting back and kind of waiting for the offense to get to him. Different situations. So you need to know where these guys are tagged, and then that gives you versatility on how you want to set your lineups. So that's what I would say is just know your positional designations on the platform you're playing if you're playing IDP.
All right, I dig it. John, back over to you, bud.
You get some of those sneaky guys on the offensive side of the ball too that have the offensive running back, wide receiver designation. So it goes across the board, yes. But we were talking about trades earlier. Don't be afraid to send trades out, even if somebody has a ton of players at any position. Don't be afraid to send trades out. I probably send out 100 trades a week across the board. I get laughed at, I get made fun of, I get whatever, so be it. Hey, somebody's going to say, hey, I know somebody likes the Bears. So I'm going to try and send them Bears trades. I'm going to try and get rid of the Bears that I can't stand on my team. I'm going to, if I have too many running backs, if I have too many wide receivers, or even if I'm trading to somebody else who has too many positions, like we talked about before, don't be afraid to send trades out. If you sit back and just let your team develop and don't make any improvements at all, one man's garbage is another man's gold. You never know what's going through somebody's head. You never know who they want. You don't know who's going. I consider going fishing, and in my leagues, it's kind of the respect thing that if I send something out, I expect someone to send a counter trade back. So it opens up conversations no matter what. So then you can see who's interested in. On Sleeper, they have, and I think ESPN has the same thing too. You could like players on the other people's teams. Let them know who you're interested in. That opens up a lot of dialogue too. But don't ever be afraid to get rejected in a trade. Even if your trade is sometimes 40% better than somebody else than what it should be, you're still going to get rejected because some people overvalue players, or they don't want to get rid of somebody, or it's their favorite player, so they can never. Like mine is Chris Godwin and DJ Moore. I drafted them in round 1 and 2 in a dynasty league this year, which I overpaid for them, but I'm not trading them. Yeah, it's tough. I know. I just heard the kind of ooh. But
that was me. I said it really quiet too. I said it real quiet. I was like, ooh.
But when you like your guys, but it would take an awful lot for someone to get them off my hands. But, it's if somebody's willing to overpay, everyone's for sale. Everyone's for sale. But just do not be afraid to send out the trades, because it's 99 of 100 are probably going to get denied anyway. Even if you take your time and do all the math or look at these trade calculators or guys that you really want, it's going to get denied anyway. expect a counter or try and send counters if somebody does send you a trade, to be courteous back, but don't ever be afraid to send trades, because that's the way, especially in a dynasty league. That's the way to do it. You got years ahead. You got guys. You have a vision for what you see in the future, and you have a hunch before somebody else thinks of it. Or what if this is your team, construct it the way you want to. It's like your basement. If you're going to put pictures of your favorite athletes or whatever, you're just building it in your vision. Your vision is your vision. Don't let other people rob you of your vision. Go after who you want. Make your team the way you want it. That's my best advice.
All right, I like it. I see that Seth here looked like he was just clicking on one of my favorite don't do's or do's. It's really a don't do little draft tip that he's seen me slightly fail on in my first ever Superflex Dynasty League. Just totally botched it in my second year playing fantasy football, and even got another funny one for you if he doesn't mention it. But go ahead and why don't you tell us your next one here.
Well, my next one was talking about not winning your league at the draft, but I know the one that you're actually talking about, and that is don't drink and draft too much.
There you go. Too much.
Too much is the key there. Yeah. So it's fine to have a drink or two and know yourself as well, but your draft is important because it's where you set the foundation of your team. You don't win your league at the draft, but you do set those foundations.
You can blow it up in the draft, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and it can make it a lot harder to maneuver later on if you're outmaneuvered by your own self.
Yeah. My favorite, and I might go with Seth's favorite example of this, is in a Capology league where you're drafting, it's an auction, you're bidding. One young lady closed her laptop during the auction with about 6 players still left to draft. Tequila was definitely her friend that evening, and it wasn't good for her draft. So
this is kind of fun, but I have 10 of my 12 leagues are live drafts. So it's all guys I've known since kindergarten. They run different types of leagues. All my stuff's live drafts, and the bar bill and the pizza, the food bill, all comes out of league entrance fee. So we have fun. It's great. I mean, everybody's over drinking at our drafts. So it's if anybody's messing, it's whoever has the best tolerance will probably have the best team. But it's don't over drink a draft is one thing, but the league party is also the most fun thing of the year. So don't try and be too conservative or too safe. Make sure you have a good time of the draft, because it only happens once a year.
There you go.
It's true, just like Christmas.
Yeah.
Best day of the year.
There you go. All right. I am going to flip over to myself. I'm going to flip over to myself here. Let's go with check your lineup prior to every game. I don't know if you've ever been in a league with somebody who set their lineup on Wednesday or Thursday before the game. They did good. They set their lineup. That was great. You can see that they changed players on Thursday. They didn't come back on Sunday morning and check that somebody was back to being injured because Hilton was questionable or okay earlier in the week because the designations suck on that certain site. And then, you got a player that's not playing. And you got that person in the league that has teams not set. So definitely don't be that guy or that girl, depending on who's listening, and be the person who doesn't set the roster, who you honestly think you did, and it turns out you didn't, because especially this year, COVID, they get checked before game time, and all of a sudden they're on the bench. It's a real deal for this year. So don't be that person that doesn't check their roster and set their lineup, because that's a bunch of poo-poo, a bunch of doo-doo. So that's some technical terms for those kids out there.
This is going to be so weird this year with this COVID stuff. I mean, you're really going to be at the top of your game every week, every game. And they're talking about having Saturday games now too, and maybe even other days of the week games. This might be a nightmare this whole season long.
Yeah, we shall see. Let's swing it over to Detroit BC. I think we got a couple more here, one or two more each here. Detroit BC, you're up.
Yeah, I pay a lot of attention to strength of schedule, and that's just a portion, just a small portion of the homework that you do prior to the draft. Strength of schedule leads to matchup-based starting issues. And I know Mendy said the DFS person in him. Well, the DFS person in me, it's always good to pick on certain teams, and we find out fairly early in the season who are the worst teams, defensively, and you're always going to want to stack against them. So it makes for a good waiver wire bid if let's say the Lions' third string guy looks to get a couple more snaps this week, and they're playing against in Jacksonville, who is awful. So I would pick up that guy solely based on a matchup, and worst case scenario, I drop said guy after the week is over.
Nice. All right, 9 minutes left to go in the show. We're going to kick into the lightning round here. Not super fast, but that was very efficient there, Beastie. David, over to you.
Yeah, just simple. After the last one I gave, just push your drafts as late as you possibly can. If the
Leonard, you, by the way.
If the Leonard Fournette situation didn't show you, if the Damian Williams opting out situation didn't show you, if Joe Mixon having a headache, which maybe pushed him back, now he signed a contract, which is going to boost him back up. Wait till as much news has come out as possible. Wait till the week before the season starts, do your drafts. Anything after that is unlucky. But if you drafted 3 months ago, so much can happen during that time. I know it's exciting to draft, but just for the sake of everybody's sanity, wait to draft until the week before the season.
But particularly for your redraft leagues.
Yes.
Yeah. Those dynasties, you can't get that out of the blood. It's drained pretty hard. Jordan, over to you, sir.
All right. I'm going to switch it up, join you guys on just the general game theory. But that one thing I think people overemphasize is that there's like a right way or a wrong way to play season-long fantasy, especially in redraft. Like after the first 2 or 3 rounds, like we know the data shows that it's like it literally is just like rolling dice. After you can pick guys that you believe in and have more probability to succeed, but the hit rates just go down massively, and it really is just a jumble. I mean, look at Austin Eckler. He was like a 6th round pick last year, and he delivered massively, but that doesn't always happen. You know what I mean? And think of the guys he was drafted around. Almost none of them hit. Curtis Samuel. Who were some other guys like in that area last year? I don't know. You know what I'm saying, though. These guys that are in these mid rounds, they're there for a reason. They're not at the top because you can't really count on them. So when you see, one thing that I used to always get to me is I finish my draft and my buddies, everybody, as soon as your draft's over, everybody's riding each other. Man, your team sucks. You suck. You don't know what the hell you're doing. Oh my gosh. I used to let that get to me. And I'd be like, damn, I did fuck this shit up bad, and I would look at my team and be like, I can see why somebody would say that, but I would look at other people's teams but they don't see, but I would let it get to me. But now I've got to the point where I draft confidently, and when I get a guy on my team and it's a guy I want, that's it. Lock it in. We're going into the season together. When I get my team set up the way I want it to be, that's what I'm going to do. Because at the end of the day, you don't know anything I don't know. We all have Twitter. We all have Roto World. We all have the same exact resources. We all listen to the same exact people. We all know the same exact narratives. We all do the same exact mock drafts. We all make our choices, and then you have to go into the season and see what happens. You have to line your guys up against their guys and see how it goes. So this idea of winning the summer is something I always tweet about, and I'm like, everybody wins in the summer. You know what I mean? Everybody wins after the draft. Everybody's feeling like, but I mean, the reality is some of the most booty ass teams I've ever seen drafted go to the playoffs and win. I was in a league 2 years ago. This is a funny story. I got to tell you guys this. One of my buddies, he's that guy, way too drunk, way too just all that in a bag of chips when it comes to the draft. This is how his 3 rounds in the middle went. He took Jimmy Graham. He took Delaney Walker. This is round 5, 6, and 7, and he took Greg Olsen. None of them finished his top 15 tight ends that season. He also took Tom Brady in the middle rounds. That guy went to the championship game. He made it. He didn't hardly make any moves. He drafted Joe Mixon. He lucked into Fournette. He had Galladay, a couple other pieces. He made it. So to think that there's a right or a wrong way to draft, and like I'm saying, those are those middle rounds too, where anything's possible. There isn't necessarily a right or a wrong way to play fantasy. So I mean, you put the best guys that you think are going to get you there on your team, and you go. So don't let anybody ride you too hard.
It's part of the fun, man. You gotta poke jabs after the draft. Your team sucks. Your team's great. You gotta have some fun with it.
Or especially if ESPN ranks your team number 1, then you're doomed.
Well, then you have to let everybody know that you did do really, really well because you have proof. Yeah.
I'm usually All right. Here's one for you for those drafting electronically. on computer drafts. Don't trust the player board. It's crap. So we print your rankings, have them with you. I think that's been mentioned a few times, but don't trust their boards, but exploit the hell out of it if your league mates will let you. So what I mean by that is certain players that you're really high on and think should be going a lot higher, or maybe there was a player that just got kicked off a team like Fournette, and maybe you feel really good about one of those running backs. Those league sites aren't always caught up to ADP, and so they haven't risen back up their draft boards since the player hasn't had enough time to get drafted, those kind of things. And so if you're playing in a league that maybe doesn't like to carry paper sheets and they just use the online ones, we're lazy. I'm lazy. I don't want to scroll down for 5 minutes to look for one player in the 4th round. I'm like, you should be right there. You should be right there, right by where I'm looking, right? So a lot of people aren't going to do that. That's why I don't care about those stupid ones on the computer. I'm going to use my own paper and then just go type in the guy I want and go find him so that I can sneak in, grab a guy lower that should be higher, or maybe I do wait an extra round because I don't think they're paying as much attention. Sometimes you play chicken and you lose, but sometimes you win and it's nice. So that's a little trick for me for exploiting the online people playing. So I think I'm over to John.
Yeah. Just making sure I'm off mute.
Yeah,
Again. A lot of these more of a redraft thing, but all of us have been in leagues for a long time with certain people, and know your league mates.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a home league or a multi-year redraft league, look through the history for the trends. Some people are creatures of habit, especially when their team was better. They'll take the same people they had 2 years in a row if their team's made the playoffs. They think, I'm going to take the same guys again because my team did so good. You could really, really, maneuver around your new lineup by just looking to see where people's trends are at. Take a minute and go into history and see what happened last year or the year before that, and see if somebody took the same players for 2 or 3 years in a row. You'll know how to navigate around their drafting to make your team better.
Or if they're heavy a certain position.
You're right.
Traditionally. Yeah. Seth, you got one for us?
Yeah, so one, my preferred tiebreaker when I'm thinking of starting 2 different players, right? Maybe it's a flex position or whatever the case may be, is if I've gone through my research and done my homework and I'm looking at these 2 guys and it's really, really close between the 2 of them, I'm looking at what am I willing to live with if one guy goes off on my bench. So if it's Kenny Galladay versus some scrub wide receiver that has a really good matchup that week, I would prefer, this is me personally, I prefer to go with Kenny Galladay, because if I bench Galladay and he goes off on my bench, I'm going to feel a lot worse than just if that scrub goes off on my bench. It's still going to suck. Don't get me wrong, because you're going to be wrong at some point, but that's my preferred method of tie breaking when you're choosing between 2 different players.
There is some serious Kenny Galladay love on this podcast tonight.
Hell yeah.
Look at that too.
Love.
He's a beast.
I thought it was required when we're on this podcast.
He's a Chicago guy. He went to St. Rita High School, went to Northern Illinois University. He's a home guy, so Catholic leaguer.
All right. There you go.
Fantastic.
Well, why don't we swing back around the room, remind people where we can find, if it's on Twitter, if it's your show, if it's your website, whatever you got going on. Or if you don't like to be found at all, that's okay too. Not looking at you, Seth. Don't worry about it. Go for it, John.
I'm on Twitter. I'm the Twitter machine at John McGlynn75. Nice and easy, nice and simple. I should have put it on the screen for everybody to look at, but I'm not that smart today. So John McGlynn75, feel free to follow me. I'll usually follow everybody back. I'm pretty good at that. I love seeing, the more the merrier. I love seeing everybody else's opinions, their thoughts. It makes me a better fantasy football player by listening to what you think. So thank you for everything that everybody does on Twitter.
Here we go. Let's kick it over to David.
Yeah, I'm at DMendio.
You're on there. Sorry.
Good. I'm at DMendio too. Again, you can check my podcast out, Triple Play Fantasy. We do a baseball and football show. We like funny and informative content. I think we try to be pretty loose and funny there. And I write for Fantrax DFS. I write for Fantasy Sports Degens. You can find all my pieces of just fantasy articles there. And yeah, write to me. Let me know what's up. You know, down for a good time. Just send me a message, and always pretty responsive.
Awesome. Down to Seth, because I know you want to share this Twitter handle. Let's go, buddy.
Oh, absolutely. If you want, you can read it on the screen here. But I'm kind of semi-retired from the podcasting game, but my former co-host, Kyle, has the Fantasy Football Smackdown pod at FF Smackdown Pod on Twitter. And anybody that's listening to this podcast knows about that one just because he's partnering up with Bob this year, but just want to give him a shout out, and he does good work.
Good at you. Pimping your co-host when you're not even a co-host anymore. I love it.
What a guy.
What a guy. Teardrops right there. All right, Jordan, over to you.
Yeah, like I said, Jordan Reigns at 50 Shades of Drunk, one of Bob's top 2. Okay, it might be one handles on Twitter. Write at Dynasty Nerds if you want to read my writing. If you guys want to listen to my podcast, the IDP 411 is kind of like a general IDP show that I do with my co-host Jared Gray and my buddy Steve. And then in season, I'm going to be doing a weekly IDP ranking show that should drop Wednesday or Thursday, so you're ready for the week. And that's just going to go over my top 24, 36 guys, and that's on the stream Defense Matters, mostly IDP, all fantasy football. Look me up. I'm ready.
Nice. It's like those Geico commercials or whatever they are with the tattoo artist. He's one of the tattoo artists in town. Not the best one. The top 2 Twitter handles.
Top 2.
Love it. Yeah. All right. Look who's reinstated. Well, almost. All right, Detroit.
So go to Twitter at Detroit Beastie. One of my pinned tweets is I'm in a Pros vs. Joe's charity league. Donate to my charity of choice. It's a wildlife rescue here in Michigan, and you can co-manage the team with me. Dave Richard from CBS plays in the same league, and Pod Vader, the guy from ESPN Fantasy Focus, is also in that league. His name is Jay Soderberg, I believe. And this just in, I don't think I told you guys, all my rankings are now available on Fantasy Pros. And I just published my top 200 IDP rankings, and it's fresh on Fantasy Pros just an hour or 2 ago. So come to my page, visit me, DM me, talk to me. Let's talk about it. What's the point of doing all this if we're not helping and supporting each other, boys?
There you go. A lot of great guests on the show. I love y'all coming on, giving your content, getting your ideas out there, giving people tips. I completely appreciate it. You guys are fun to hang out with on the Twitter, on the pod. So thank you so much. That's it's me, it's Bob Three Toad, and Twitter, and Bob Three Toad Warriors on the YouTube. Shows are currently Monday and Thursday with the live stream on Tuesday, replay on Saturday. That'll be changing up a little. And about a week and a half here, going to Tuesday's shows with Thursday, Friday, and then the live stream Tuesday, replay on Saturday. That's enough stuff that y'all didn't write down. Don't worry about it. Just subscribe. It'll be in your ears. That's all you need to know. So for everybody on the show, it's Bob Street Warrior. Saying soon enough you'll be able to hit the waiver wire, set your lineup, dominate your opponents. But until then, see you. Why are words so hard today?